Hello, everyone. Welcome to Jamaica 411. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm your host, Michelle Stern. So, I did promise you that I'll be back with another, video on the Integrity Commission, and I still have another one. And that other one, you are going to be very surprised, unless by tomorrow I get surprised myself. But yes, I have another video on the Integrity Commission. And again, we'll be talking about the annual report because some very startling information came out of it. And we're going to be examining the annual report from last year. July it was tabled in the Parliament, and see if we can discover what changed, if anything. But before I move on, may I ask everyone to please give the video a thumbs up from now on. Please give the video a thumbs up. And of course, I want to say I'm grateful for the thumbs up that you've been giving the video. You've been doing very nicely, and I appreciate it. And of course, I'm going to ask you to share, as well as subscribe if you have not yet done so. And of course, you are free to leave your comments in the comments section. And I would like to thank you all in advance. And thank you. All right. So, with that out of the way, let us now get on with business. So, the Integrity Commission said that in 1 year, they have examined, in 1 year, they examined 11,763 statutory declarations with 10,000 pending. So maybe by now them finish those. And if you want to know how startling that is, let me remind you of how they managed last year and the years before. So the Integrity Commission opened its doors more or less in 2018. And between 2018 and 2024, they had received 165,000 statutory declarations, of which they were only able to examine 2,324 in that 6-year period. Come last year, 2024, 2025, they had done, they said, in that 1 year, 11,763. So the total that they have done since inception is 14,087 statutory declarations. When it comes to the certification, of the 11,763 that were examined, they certified 1,874 last year. And the total overall from 2018 to 2024 was 3,655. So we're talking now about a rate of certification of 25.9%. 25.9% of those that they examined were certified. And that figure represents 1.9% of the total number of statutory declarations received, 189,411. And what we do not know is how many of our public officials that represents over that 6-year period. So that now is worrying. Now, that would not be a fault of theirs. That now would be a problem for those who are submitting their statutory declarations. They clearly have not supplied all the documentation that they need to supply. And if the Integrity Commission has questions for them, they have not yet replied. So only 1,874 last year was certified. Now, there were some other information that the Integrity Commission's annual report contained. And I decided to look at them because when Justice Seymour Panton is going to say that he's proud of the work that they have done, we are now looking at the Integrity Commission in terms of what they have accomplished and see why it is that he was so proud and why it is that my lady is there praising him and talking about his sterling contribution to the Integrity Commission, and so on and so forth. So they give out certain information. And for example, they say that they only have 50% of the complement of investigators. So if anybody out of job, and you're looking at investigation work and you qualified, go and go see if you can get one work with Integrity Commission. But the problem though is I don't know if the Integrity Commission is the right place to be employed. Let me tell you why. Because they said they have a total staff complement of 137 employees in all. Last year, they hired 31 employees. 17 left. So the turnover of staff is 12.6 for that year, and they said that was down 3%. Now, when I saw that, I said to myself, no, man, but something wrong here. And although they said it's about the money, it can't be just that alone. Yes, some people will leave to go and get a better job. Well, let me tell you something, and many of you can attest to it. If you're in a job where you're comfortable and you're happy, even if you're not getting the kind of money that you hope or you can get elsewhere, and somebody come offering you a higher wage, some will take it and take the risk, but many will not. Many will say to themselves, well, the money nice, I like forget that money, but I'm not comfortable here. Will I be comfortable over there? And what happens if I go over there, I'm not comfortable? What am I going to do? You follow? And so the money for some persons is the first thing that motivates them to take a job. But when it comes to the reason why they stay, there are other motivating factors that will make a person stay in a job other than just the money. For some people, they like the boss, they like the workers around them and so on, and that will make them take the job and make them stay. Not to mention the benefits that they're receiving from the job. Also, if they happen to be married women and they have a husband can take care of them don't really matter about that. They just want something stable. So they will stay in a job for millions of years. So when 17 employees get up and leave a job like that, 12.6% of the number of persons that you have employed, that is telling me that there is something wrong with that working environment, right? There is nothing that is there that is holding them. And they are saying that this is a worrying trend, right? Now, those employees, those persons that left, they are under the Secret Act, but that is only for chatting people's business, the statutory declarations. Them not hand a license by your mouth to come out and tell us what is going on in the Integrity Commission, why it is that people are leaving. Is it a matter of the pay? Is it a matter of the benefits? How many of the persons that are leaving were actually from the old commissions, the legacy commissions? That's another question. But regardless, we need to know why it is that so many persons are leaving, right? Now, we are experiencing something out here from the Integrity Commission. They are on the inside, right? Is it that they are seeing things that they don't believe is right? In other words, they hear that they're going to be working for the Integrity Commission. They say, aha, at least I'm going to go somewhere where, honesty and decency is. Is it that when they arrive, they're seeing something totally different from what it is that they expected? And so what they do is, and can't tolerate it no more than take up themselves and gone. You can talk about that. All of you that left, you can talk about the working conditions. You can talk about the things that they're doing that is not right, in your opinion. Of course, you can also talk about the things that they may be doing that you believe is right. And the things that you disagree with, that you can talk about. There is nothing that can stop you from talking about that. So if you feel like you want to call Cliff or you want to call George Davis and, tell him what happened, why you left, feel free. What you cannot do, though, is talk about the statutory declarations that were in your control, right? Yes, so feel free. So something is desperately wrong at the Integrity Commission. And for those persons who work with other people, you know what I'm talking about. You take the job because of the pay, the benefits, and the co-workers. And of course, you have to like the boss. Usually, you like the boss. What would make you change and leave that employment? Better wages, better benefits elsewhere, problems with your co-worker, or very possibly problems with the boss. What is happening at the Integrity Commission? Why people are leaving? Remember, when they took the job, they know the wage was low. Is it that they were sitting in the job and just waiting and biding them time until something better come? That's possible. Some persons may say it is probably the strain of the job and the stress, but some people like that. It's challenging, right? Money might not be enough, but guess what? If the environment in which they were working was conducive to them, they would take the stress and they would work in the condition, right? Because to them, it is worthwhile doing. You see what I'm saying? Am I talking foolishness? Tell me in the comment section if I talk foolishness. And if I'm not talking foolishness, tell me what your views are, because I'm interested. So this worker turnover situation at the Integrity Commission is more than a cause for concern. There needs to be an investigation, but somebody need to go and find out what the hell is going on. Why 17 people took up themselves and left out of a staff complement of 137? So that is something that is worth investigating, Mass Cliff and Mass George. That is something worth investigating. And so the Integrity Commission's Oversight Committee of the Parliament may need to look closely at this matter and investigate to see what it is that may be going on in the Integrity Commission, why there's such a high employee turnover. It's a sign that there is something that is not right about the commission. It may be the salary, but then it may be other things as well. And the parliament needs to find out what is happening there, in my view. Now, is this an aberration or is it a definite problem? When you look at the year 2023, 2024, which is the previous period, they started out with a complement of 123 staffers. And of course, they needed, for a full complement, is 178. So they started out with 123, hired 45, 40 of those that were on fixed term contracts and 5 temporary employees. But guess what happened? During that period, 18 persons left. 18. And that gave us a 15% attrition rate. At the end of the year, they ended with 137 employees, 123 on fixed term contracts and 14 temporary employees. The year before, which was 2022, 2023, they started out the year with 120 employees, hired 21, and 11 left. So we're talking about a systemic problem. Now, in the 2023-2024 period, they said that it had something to do with the unresolved issues with the Ministry of Finance and I suppose their classification, right? So they're saying that the reason why the people left was because of money and because, according to them, they're in a high-risk environment. I don't know what they're talking about, but them think that they're in a high-risk environment. And so therefore the persons are saying for the money that they're getting and the risk that they're taking, it's not worth it. That's more or less what the Integrity Commission is saying, right? It's the reason why those persons leave. Again, if the environment in which they're working, is conducive, is an environment in which they are comfortable and happy to work in, they'll take the risk and they'll take the compensation. Right? Something is happening in the Integrity Commission and it needs to be investigated. And if anyone should doubt that there is a very serious problem, just add up the number of persons who left that organization, right, over a 3-year period. 17 in 2025, 18 in 2024, and 11 in 2023. What you get is 46. And that's 46 out of, let us even suggest that it is 46 out of 137, right? You're talking about a 33.5% attrition rate. That's incredible. So we have identified one very serious problem at the Integrity Commission. Another problem, which was very obvious to all of us because it's so glaring, of course, is the matter of the statutory declarations and the backlog. Severe backlog, I may say. And what we're going to do is look very briefly at the what it is that they say. Now we're going by what it is that they say are the functions of the Director of Information and Complaints, as well as what they said are the functions of the Information and Complaints Committee. The Information and Complaints Committee comprised the Auditor General Pamela Monroe Ellis as chairperson, Justice Seymour Panton, Eric Crawford as the three commissioners, and the Director of Information and Complaints, Craig Beresford. And they comprise the Information and Complaints Committee. Craig Beresford was promoted. He's now the Executive Director. And Carol Beswick and H. Wayne Powell replaced Panton and Crawford. Miss Joeth Jones replaced Craig Beresford as Director of Information and Complaints. So let us take a look now at how the system works. Information and Complaints Division receives the statutory declarations from those persons who are in the public sector, parliamentarians, government workers earning above a certain salary, judges, councillors, and so on. So when they receive the statutory declarations, they are supposed to go through and check and see whether or not they are supporting documents. If not, they ask the declarants to supply them with supporting documents. Once everything is in order, the Director of Information and Complaints will then send the statutory declarations to the committee, and that is the Information and Complaints Committee, with a recommendation to either certify the declarations or, if there is a need for further investigations, then he would ask that the matter be referred to the Director of Investigation. The committee then would send the statutory declarations either way to the commission, and the commission would certify or refer the matter to the Director of Investigation. That's my understanding of how it works. Now, the question then is, with the backlog, severe backlog of statutory declarations, where they received 189,411 since 2018 and only managed to examine 14,087 out of that number, which is a marked improvement over what it was the year before. Then only managed to certify 3,654 in that period. It means that somewhere along this chain that I just described, there is a problem. The holdup is either in the Director of Information and Complaints Division, or it is at the committee level, or it is at the commission level. We don't know which it is, but what we will do is continue to examine what it is that they say is the function and the process that them follow, and see if we can discover anything at all. So according to the annual report, Section 32(1) of the Integrity Commission Act of 2017 sets out the functions of the Director of Information and Complaints, who heads the Information and Complaints Division of the Integrity Commission. The reference section provides that, and it's quoting from the law, the Director of Information and Complaints shall, not maybe, shall, receive, keep on record, and examine all statutory declaration filed with the Commission. So his first duty is to receive the statutory declarations, and then he's also to examine them. How many? The law said he should examine all statutory declarations filed with the Commission, all of them. So within the 1 year period that he receives the statutory declarations, he is supposed to examine all of them. You understand? Now, it goes on to say that he's to receive and keep proper record of complaints and so on and so forth. He is to submit to the executive director quarterly reports and perform such other functions that may be assigned to him by other laws. So there is a matter now of how it is that the law is interpreted. And I wonder if we might trouble, well, let's not trouble Mr. Panton again, but let us speak to each other. And let me tell you where the problem with them was. The law specifically says to you, you're going to receive statutory declarations and you have to examine all of them within the period, which is the 1 year period, so they're not buck up on one another. You now recognize you're going to be receiving anywhere between 22,000 to 33,000 statutory declarations every year. It is for you to find a mechanism that will enable you to satisfy the requirements of the law. Matter of fact, I think we should send this to Mr. Panton, right? So it was their job to interpret the section to ensure that the requirements of the law were satisfied, and these requirements are that they were to examine all statutory declarations that were submitted to them. They evidently went and took a course which was to audit. And you see, you don't need inside information to tell you that that was what they were doing. The mere fact that the turnover was so low, 2,324 out of 165,000, right, over a 6-year period, can only mean they were running audits. And based upon what my recollection was from something that Mr. Panton had said, that he finds it difficult to certify statutory declarations that ought not to be certified. So he may have been told that, so you have to do it. You have to put this thing in place. But the idea that he's going to certify somebody that may not, ought not to be certified, meaning to say that them probably involved in things, and he couldn't do it. And it caused a severe backlog. The mechanism that they were using, therefore, was not in keeping with the law. I wonder if you understand what I'm saying. The law says, do this. It never says how you should do it. It is up to you to do whatever is necessary in order to comply with what the law says. And what they were certainly not doing was what was required. And we were out here preaching to them, telling them that they must stop this business of auditing all the statutory declarations that came before them, and instead check what is on the supporting documents against what is on the statutory declaration for accuracy. And once it is accurate, send it forward to be certified. All they had to do was to check and then select a number of persons every year to audit. Right? And we were telling them that that is what they should do, because that is the only way they are going to be able to satisfy the requirements of the law. Now, we are going to find out what it was that they eventually did to be able to examine 11,763 statutory declarations in 1 year. But when we continue to look at the function of the Director of Information and Complaints, this is where I believe the holdup really was, where it says, make such inquiries as he considers necessary in order to certify or determine the accuracy of a statutory declaration. And I put it to you that that was where the problem was. It appears as though either he was instructed to carry out his functions in this fashion, where every statutory declaration that presents itself before him going to check out every damn thing on the paper, which greatly increased the amount of time that he was spending on each statutory declaration that was before him. Because he must spend time and write to bank, and I asked that the one did this, and I asked that, carrying out audit. So that must have been where the holdup was. Right? Let us now take a quick look at what they said are the functions of the Information and Complaints Committee. Pursuant to Section 25 of the Integrity Commission Act of 2017, a committee of this division was established. The committee comprised 3 members of the commission: Pamela Monroe Ellis, the chair, Justice Seymour Panton, Eric Crawford, and the Director of Information and Complaints, Craig Beresford. However, and then them talk about the change. Justice Panton, Eric Crawford, and Craig Beresford out, and in came Carol Beswick, H. Wayne Powell, and Joeth Jones replaced Craig Beresford. So, the terms of reference of the committee are, listen to them now, 3 of them: to review complaints regarding allegations of impropriety as well as non-compliance with any provision of the Integrity Commission Act. Second one is to advise the Commission on matters of concern that is considered of significance and should be referred to the Director of Investigation. So if Mr. Beresford come back and say, I see something and this look fishy, that is what they should do. They should advise the Commission and recommend that the statutory declaration should be referred to the investigator. And the third function is to review the summary of statutory declaration for the Prime Minister and Leader of the Opposition for Gazette publication approval. That's it. That's the 3 functions, right? So I think we can safely say that the holdup was within the Information and Complaints Division itself. And it was because of one of the functions of Craig Beresford. One of his functions was to make inquiries as he considers necessary in order to certify or determine the accuracy of a statutory declaration. And his idea of accuracy, it would appear, was to conduct verification exercises on everything that was stated in the statutory declaration, and then have to wait for responses from the various entities that were contacted. It's the only way it could have taken so long. So, how then were they able to make this massive turnaround? Remember, for the 6 years, out of the 165,000 statutory declarations received, a total, they were only able to examine, they were only able to see 2,324 out of that number. In other words, the other 162,000 or thereabouts, them don't even know what them look like. Nobody never reached them yet. So let us now take a look to see how were they able now to get 11,763 examined and something in the order of another 10,000 that were under review. That means to say they were looking at them. They had received in the same period 24,500 statutory declarations. But remember, there is a backlog. So this 11,763 would include some of the new statutory declarations received, and they were attempting to clear up some of the backlog as well. Irrespective of that, they can claim a great success because if they did not have the backlog, they would have almost cleared up all of the statutory declarations for last year. See? Now, this is one of the problems that, there are certain persons in the society that have a very serious problem. Feedback is something that they are not interested in. And it does not matter how excellent the idea is, they're going to stick with what it is that they are doing, even if what they are doing is not getting them anywhere. That's a problem that we have as a society, right? I want you to listen to this. The Information and Complaints Division was tasked by the Integrity Commission Parliamentary Oversight Committee to develop strategies to reduce the severe backlog of statutory declarations to be examined. Who it was that said the same thing that we were saying to them? The Integrity Commission Parliamentary Oversight Committee. They were looking at the backlog. You have 165,000 statutory declarations, and all you are examining, you have recertification yet to know. You're examining out of that amount 2,324. No, man, you need to do something. Go and find a way to make it happen, is what they said to them. And because they are the ones who put them there, the parliament, they had to listen. Right? So they went and started to use them damn brain. Yes, that's all they had to do, use the brain. And they found a way to make it happen. And they're going to tell us now what that is. Now, they said, in response to the request, they don't care about we as out here, so. If the parliament never asked them, they would have been carrying on with them carryings on, right? In response to the request, the division reviewed and reorganized its processes. The new process focuses on determining completeness, including third-party checks to conclude the examination of a statutory declaration. Public officials are then requested to submit any outstanding supporting documents, answer questions, and amend their statutory declaration form. That's the process. Not finished yet. After that, a determination is then made as to whether the statutory declaration is to be certified or referred to the Commission for further and necessary action, like an investigation. Right? Let me see if that's the process. That's it. So what is it that they just said? They never see any problem with what they were doing, evidently. The Parliament asked them to do something about the backlog. And in response to the request of the Parliament, the Oversight Committee, they decided to look at what it is they're doing and reorganize the process. So they were doing something that was causing a problem. They now decide to organize it, to change it to something else. The new process that they put in place, and the first thing that they needed to do was to determine what completeness means. At what point can the statutory declaration be said to be complete? So they have to determine that first. Having determined when it is complete, they now have to determine what third-party checks need to be made, right? Which ones need to be made? Do you need to make, if they put 20 items, do you need to make all third-party checks for all 20? Or is it just these and these? That's what the second thing is that they had to determine. So these are the two components that are required to conclude the examination of the statutory declarations. They went on to say, public officials are then requested to submit any outstanding supporting documents, answer questions, and amend their statutory declaration form. So what are they saying here? They're talking a little back to front. So let me see if we can straighten it out for you. When the statutory declarations come into them, it is supposed to be accompanied by supporting documents. So if you say you own a house at such and such a place, how do you own property in Jamaica? By a certificate of title. That is what determines that you own it. If you say you have a mortgage, then you must come with your mortgage agreement. If you say you have a lease, maybe you bought the house on a mortgage, so you're the owner, you have the mortgage, and at the same time you lease out the property to tenants, to help you with the mortgage or whatever. Then you're going to bring your lease agreement for the tenants, your mortgage agreement with the mortgage company, and your title to show that your name on it. So they are supposed to, for every line item that they say they have an asset or they have a liability, they must bring supporting document as evidence to prove that what you're saying in the statutory declaration is true. But it didn't stop there. They did more. To support the new process, staffing reassignments were undertaken and the scope of work of the data entry team was changed. This is a massive reorganization of the process that they're just describing, that even the data entry team and the scope of work that they were hired to undertake, that changed too, right? They had to reassign staff in order to make the new process work, right? Now, they went on to say the functions of the data entry team now include, listen, preliminary review of the statutory declarations. Why and what are they looking for? Identify areas for correction and or supporting documents which are outstanding. The next step for the data entry team is to draft the initial inquiry and examination process request. And the fourth thing that they do is, in collaboration with the declaration verification officers, scheduling and managing appointments with public officials. So let me tell you what I understand that they do now. When the statutory declaration comes in, the data entry team first examines it. They look at it, right? And what they check for, first of all, is errors. Any errors that are in the documents. If not, then they may have some questions for the public official, may want him to verify something. Or if they left out any of the supporting documents, they're going to write to them and ask them to submit them. And in the event that they have questions for them, based upon what it is that was declared, then this is what I understand him to mean, that the scheduling, managing appointments with the public official. That's my understanding of the process. So there is no auditing. What they're doing now is checking for accuracy, checking for the supporting documents, the evidence that what you're saying in your statutory declaration is true. And if they have any queries, they then set an appointment, get that information out of you. And then if there are any corrections that are to be made to the statutory declaration, they ask you to resubmit it. And then that's that. So that was how they were able to get the 11,763 statutory declarations examined in 1 year. And don't forget the 10,500 that they had under review. Hopefully, they have examined them now. So, this was what they were supposed to have done in the first place. And to think that because the parliamentarians took 6 years to ask them to find a way, find a way to solve that problem. But they would not have done it. Why should they? I'm getting paid anyway. And the effect of what they were doing for the past 6 years was that there were persons submitting statutory declarations and they had no clue at all whether or not the persons who submitted those statutory declarations were involved in illicit enrichment. And if we may expand the discussion a little further, when the Integrity Commission was established and came into operation in 2018, we had moved positively on the Corruption Perception Index, 15 places, right? And then it has fallen since, back into the direction we're coming from. And the reason for our positive movement in the first place was that there was a perception that with the Integrity Commission, we were on the right track to stamp out corruption in Jamaica or, reduce it at the very least. So they moved us on trust. We moved 15 places. We had improved. And I put it to you that it was a failing of the Integrity Commission to carry out its mandate that you hear Mr. Panton saying was proud of. That would have been a reason why we were falling in terms of the corruption perception that's put out by people like Transparency International. And it is steady. It is steady because nothing has changed. As soon as the Integrity Commission can get its act together and can show that it's not a fluke, they did it last year and they're going to do it this year, you are going to see our ratings in terms of the corruption perception. It is going to improve. Mark my words. And it is simple logic. If it was the introduction of the Integrity Commission that made us improve in the first place, then it must be the failings of the Integrity Commission that caused us to fall back to where we were coming from. It makes sense. And so, finally, they got the message. And Mr. Panton left his office on a high and felt very proud that for the final few months of his tenure as chairman of the Integrity Commission, he was able to accomplish something in terms of the backlog, severe backlog of the statutory declarations, examination, which was, of course, of his own making, right? Of his own making. But old time people would say better late than never. He was able to, under his chairmanship, to put the system in place that is now going to see the statutory declarations as they come in being examined, which means that they will finally be able to satisfy the requirements of the law. And because they finally are going to be able to check almost all of the statutory declarations that come in, they will now have a better idea as to who is who and who may be engaged in things like illicit enrichment right throughout the government service. In other words, everybody going to get a little touch. And this will also give us a clearer picture as to the degree of corruption in the public sector, right? 65 out of 14,087 statutory declarations examined since 2018 represents less than 1%, 0.46% in fact. And that's the number of persons, 65 so far, that they have suspected or are investigating for either illicit enrichment or making false statements on their statutory declarations. Isn't that amazing? 65 out of 14,087. Now, we have long held the view that corruption was widespread among our civil servants, politicians, and all of those government people. And what the Integrity Commission report has proven is that our perception was not correct. And that for me was the major revelation that came out of the Integrity Commission's annual report of last year. Let me know what you think about all of this. I want to thank everyone who joined me today. I want to thank everyone who gave the video a thumbs up, shared the video, as well as subscribe. And of course, I want to also thank you for leaving your comments. Yes. And so until next time, take very good care of yourselves and walk good.